To yield myself such time as I might consume.
The gentleman from Oregon is recognized for as much time as he may consume.
I thank the chair. Well, we have before us two bills that have previously passed the House merged into one bill that will again pass with a Republican majority. It mandates offshore oil drilling from Maine to the southeast coast. Mandates offshore oil drilling off of South Carolina. This would all be done under expedited or potentially non-existent environmental reviews if they didn't meet extraordinarily brief timelines, and they would not be allowed to evaluate any options that did not include drilling. This would also, as the Republicans are extremely fiscally conservative, this would double the revenue sharing for offshore oil drilling, creating a $30 billion loss to the federal government and benefiting a few southeast states. The onshore portion of the bill, every permit for drilling on federal lands in the United States would have to be issued within 60 days. And the concept of multiple use, that is hunting, fishing, recreating, mountain biking, horseback riding, go on down the list, and other activities are all subsumed to energy development, which becomes the big, oh, wait a minute, what? I mean, really, they gave me, this is my June 2013 speech. I mean, this is last year's speech. I mean, who gave me last year's speech? Really? Oh, guess what? It really doesn't matter because this is the same bill from last year. Two bills into one, exactly the same bills. Passed the House last year, the year before that, the year before that. Every year since the Republicans have taken over, when gas prices spike up, they pass imaginary legislation and pretend they're doing something about high gas prices instead of tackling the real causes, which I'll get to in a moment. So many people have heard about Christmas in July. We now have a new tradition here, which is Groundhog Day in June for energy bills in a faux, sort of attempt to pretend we really care about the extortionate prices that people are paying because of big oil in the United States and speculation on Wall Street. But God forbid we should take on either of those very powerful and generous forces, generous to some, not to others. Does anybody believe this? I guess there are a few people who believe anything. But since they first brought this bill to the floor in 2011, U.S. oil production has gone from 5.6 million barrels a day to 8.4 million barrels a day. Not shabby, basically a 50% increase. But let's look at another chart. Exports. We're talking about, now we have a new theory. This isn't about lowering prices in America. It's about avoiding even higher prices in America because we're stabilizing the world markets. Well, I've had a lot of complaints from truckers. Look at how much diesel we're exporting. Since the Republicans started this campaign, the combined exports of refined gasoline, remember the shortages, that's why we're paying higher prices, supply and demand, have gone from 700 million barrels a day to 1.5 million. We've doubled our export of refined products, and the truckers are really getting stuck here. Look at this line. You want to know why diesel prices are up? Because diesel exports are up phenomenally. So we can blather on about, gee, all we need is more production so we can export more. In fact, now the oil industry is pushing to end our ban on the export of crude oil. Right now, at least we get some value added and we get a few more jobs by exporting refined products. Now the industry wants us to lift the ban and say that we will export crude oil from the United States of America. I guess so that we can prevent bigger price spikes if there are future crises, because this is the new theory promulgated by the Wall Street Journal. Now, we hear a lot about the president. Now, here's a reality check on that issue. Federal onshore production is up 30% under President Obama. In fact, President Obama is presiding over record production levels and plummeting imports, Well, the exact opposite happened under the Bush-Cheney energy policy, which actually was designed to make us more dependent upon foreign oil, and that did happen in spades during the Bush-Cheney administration. And the Energy Information Administration, they're right, there was a blip in our production offshore. It had to do with a little oil spill called Horizon Deepwater, and there was a temporary suspension of drilling and new permits. That's history now, but that does make your average look lower over time. But the Energy Information Administration says that offshore production will reach record levels. That is, all federal offshore oil production will reach record levels by 2016. But that, that doesn't, that's reality, that doesn't matter. Now we have a really nifty title, and that's something that, we spend lots of money on consultants around here, both parties do, to come up with nifty little sayings. The nifty title is Lowering Gasoline Prices to Fuel an America That Works, Act of 2014. Well, since we started this argument with the Republicans on this issue about increased oil production leading to lower gas prices, well, 2008, when we had drill, baby, drill, in order to lower gas prices that were $3.50 to $4 a gallon. And guess what? They haven't gone down, so that argument kind of doesn't work anymore, but now they're saying, well, they would have been higher if we weren't producing more oil, and if we produced just more, they might not have been even more higher, or maybe they would be lower, because that's what we said for the last 4 years, that they'd be lower, but since we're exporting a whole heck of a lot of it, they're not, because we're paying a world price for oil, and now they want us to pay a world price for natural gas, one place where we do have an advantage. So the prices don't go down. There's such an abundance of oil, as I mentioned earlier. The American Petroleum Institute wants to lift the ban on the export of crude oil from the United States. Wouldn't that be great? The U.S. can export crude oil to China. China can use it to run their electrical generating facilities, which supply their manufacturing facilities, which will produce value-added products, things that we formerly used to make here in the United States, and they'll sell them back to us. So we get to sell them a raw material, kind of like a colony, and they sell us back sophisticated materials. That's kind of like something we fought a revolution over a couple of hundred years ago, but now that's okay with some on the other side. Now, this is both coasts and Alaska, and tremendous degradation of environmental protections on the inland areas. As I mentioned earlier, this will really do away with multiple use. Now, we heard from the chairman, who's an esteemed colleague, that the spike in Iraq would have been worse if we weren't producing so much and exporting so much. Now, actually, I just saw the statistics yesterday. Oil production hasn't dropped at all. The other OPEC companies are putting more oil out, and Iraq is at 95% of where they were before this. So actually, there's been no reduction anywhere, but somehow prices are up about 20 cents a gallon at the pump. Now, if we just produced more oil, that wouldn't happen. No, that's not true. We are producing more oil. If we just exported more oil, refined oil and diesel and gasoline, that wouldn't happen. Well, no, because we are. What happened? Wall Street is speculating on the price of oil. We had sworn testimony from the CEO of ExxonMobil 2.5 years ago, before the United States Senate, when gas was around getting to $4 a gallon. He said, hey, don't blame me. This isn't ExxonMobil doing this, it's Wall Street. Because of the deregulation of Wall Street, the fact that we haven't yet implemented position limits on speculators, on commodities, as we were supposed to do under Dodd-Frank, which they want to repeal. He said, 60 cents a gallon, drive up to the pump, and you're sending 60 cents a gallon to Wall Street speculators. So if they wanted to do something today, or tomorrow, or yesterday, or last year, or maybe next June, about spiking oil prices, It would be to go after the speculators on Wall Street. That's the quickest relief that we could provide. Mandate position limits, or even better, repeal the provisions of the Commodity Futures Trading Modernization Act, which I voted against, which was a Clinton-era Republican bill that actually allowed massive new speculation by non-consumers, non-producers, something that we never had, never needed, and don't need today. So next time you go to the pump, say, oh, well, if we just drilled right here off of Maine, or right here off of Massachusetts, or right here, I would pay less. Or think, wow, if they want to really give me relief, they'd take on the big oil companies, they'd take on Wall Street, but they won't do that. With that, I would reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Oregon.